I believe we're live. Okay, I can see some people coming in. Would someone let me know if you can hear me? That would be great. I'll jump over to here. Hello, hello. I'm sort of watching on YouTube as well, and there is a bit of a delay. But if someone can let me know if you can hear me, that would be fantastic. It is a lovely Wednesday morning here, and I am all set to craft. So we've got Barb and Diane and Monica. And Sharon's come in. Diane can see me. Can you hear me, Diane? Sound is good on YouTube. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much, Monica. All right. So I'm not going to muck around too much this morning. We are going to get straight into creating. I just want to show you a couple of little things. First, hello, Sharon and Mindy. We've got a couple of Sharons on. Excellent. So a couple of things I just want to let you know about. Today we're creating for the Colour Inspiration Challenge. Number 155, and these are the colours that we're going to use. So we've got Fresh Freesia, Highland Heather, Gorgeous Grape and Cherry Cobbler. A very interesting mix of colours to use because the purples sort of all mix in together a little bit, especially when you're watercolouring. So that's been interesting. My card doesn't really look anything like this challenge pick, but that's fine. Please, if you would like to put an entry in, we have a couple of weeks to go, I think, or at least a week and a weekend to go before this challenge finishes. It's really simple to enter. I will pop the links up in the description afterwards, but it is so simple. You just need to create a card, pop it up in the Facebook group. So you will need to join the group first, and there are 3 questions when you go to join the group, so make sure you answer those so we can approve you to join and pop your card up. It's a nice, fun, easy, very supportive challenge. Okay, we have the seasonal sale on at the moment, so that runs from yesterday until tomorrow. The seasonal sale is, let me see if I can remember, it's 10% off ribbons and trims. I haven't got it written down in front of me. 10% off ribbons and trims, 15% off inks, which includes Stampin' Blends, ink refills, ink pads, Stampin' Right marker sets. So jump in, and 20% off cardstock and designer series paper, which includes watercolor paper. So if you jump in onto the website, you will see everything that is on sale has a bright pink sale banner. You can't miss it. So only until end of business on the 16th of November. So make sure that you jump in and grab some goodies before that sale finishes, because it's a pretty amazing sale. And if you're going to join, you can add those on sale items to your starter kit. So that makes your starter kit worth so much more. So give me a hoy if you want to talk about that. What else have I got to show you? Oh, I do have something else. I'm going to try something new in November and see how it goes. They are gorgeous colours, aren't they, girls? Yes. I am doing a Zoom 1-hour class on Sunday the 26th of November. So in Australia, the times are 3:30 in South Australia, 3:30 in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in Perth, 3 o'clock in Queensland and 4 o'clock on the East Coast Australia daylight savings times. You are welcome from around the world. I'm creating a project at the moment, and I will put up supply and cut measurements for cardstock in both metric for Aussies and UK, if anyone's game to get up in the UK at the ridiculous time that the class is. But I'll also put them up in Imperial in the USA card sizes. So you are welcome to join me from around the world, just about an hour on Zoom. You'll have to come into Zoom for the class. I'm not streaming anywhere, I'm not recording it, but I will have a PDF afterwards. So there is a registration link, which I will put up in the Blue Mushroom group. I did send it out in a newsletter, but I'll put it up in the Blue Mushroom group. And if you'd like to come along and craft with me on the 26th of November, that would be fabulous. Everyone is welcome. And then I've got some Sasha spam. Now Sasha might come in and visit us a little bit today, because I'm actually sitting down to craft today instead of standing up. So I just thought I'd show you what she's been up to. Now this is her in her favourite relaxing position on the couch. It's hard to tell which end is which with this photo, but she's a very happy puppy most of the time. So that's my little Sasha spam for the day. So that's all my starting guff. I think we better get in and get creating, because the project today is quite... it's got lots of steps, so we need to get in and get it done so that I'm not running too far over time. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the craft desk, and hopefully that's still set up. So let me have a quick look. And there we go. Now, please excuse my light. I still haven't received my new light, so we're still working off the not so good light. But anyway, I've got it. Just see if I can make, oh, that's off. I might be able to get a better setting here and turn it up a bit. I think that looks okay on my screen. It's a little dark, I can see on the YouTube screen, and I'm just running over my cord, so bear with me so I don't pull my sound out. Oh dear, I really do have a big tangle here. There's always something that goes wrong, isn't there? I've run my wheelie chair over the microphone cord, and it's wrapped around the base. There we go, let me get that up out of the road. Okay, so this is the card. So I'm using embossing paste, a couple of different die sets, and some stamps, the Magical Meadows stamps. And then the greeting is from the So Sincere stamp set. Now, we have been told that the Magical Meadow stamp set, sorry about that, and dies will be retiring out of the mini catalogue that's coming up. I'm just reading the comments. She is a very happy puppy. And I did get a coffee, Barb. Yes. Yes, quite a few people, thank you Diane for registering for the Zoom class. Quite a few people have registered, so I think it's going to be a really fun day. If you are worried about coming along on Zoom, you can always leave your camera off as well and just create along with us, and we'll still be able to hear you. So, you know, you can ask questions as we go. But if you're worried about having a space to, you know, you don't want people to see your space or your face, then you can leave your camera off. That's fine too. So the Magical Meadow stamp set is this one, and it does have coordinating dies. So they will be going at the end of this mini catalogue, which finishes at the end of December, actually early January. So you still have plenty of time to get this one if you want it. It is a lovely watercolour look set, which is what we're using it for today. And the other stamp set that we're using, which is carrying over, is this one, So Sincere, and we'll just be using that one for the sentiment. But I really love these sentiments from that particular stamp set. So to start with, I'm using watercolour paper most of the way through this project, except for the card base, which is going to be basic white. So I've got some basic white thick cardstock here, which I have scored in the middle, and I'm just going to fold and score that now. Fold and burnish that, sorry, with my bone folder. So my base is just thick basic white. Standard card size, folded in half. So that one's ready to go. And the next step we'll do is the bit that we need to dry, which is the embossing paste background. Now I've got some new embossing paste because if you remember, do you remember, was it last time I used it? I was just about out. So I have got some new embossing paste, but because the embossing paste takes a little while to dry, I have pre-dipped done the embossing paste. The other reason I pre-did my embossing paste was last time I used it in a live, I just threw it off to the side and then I didn't get back to cleaning it. And it was when I did the Abundant Beauty dyes, the last one where I did the flowers, and the background dye I just threw aside and then forgot, and it took quite a bit to get the embossing paste off the folder, and I still don't think I was successful because I let it dry. So this time I have pre-done my backgrounds and washed my stencil, so I'm not going to go through that again. So I'm using one of the stencils out of the, I think it's called the 4 square stencils. I don't have the packet here. I think that's what they're called. They are in the annual catalogue, and they have this great one. I will actually find it and show you. They do have this absolutely gorgeous design. I don't know why I haven't used this before. It's the first time I pulled it out. It is a beautiful design. So it's these ones here, and they are called, yes, 4 square. The 4 square masks, I think they're called, decorative masks. But they have some interesting patterns in them, just for little background patterns. So that's, I'm using this very flourishy one. Don't even know what you call that. Flocked wallpaper. Let's call it the flocked wallpaper stencil. So I have just popped that down on a full-size sheet of watercolour paper. The Fluid 100 watercolour paper comes in this size, and I'm using the full sheet, which I will trim down, but I just find it easier to use the full sheet. And I have popped it on here, and I don't think I can probably match it. Oh yes, I can. I've popped it on and just applied my stencil paste through the stencil. So I think pretty much most of you know how to do that, but you just pick the embossing paste up with the back of your palette knife. Got it right, Barb, it's a palette knife. And I've just randomly applied it through the stencil so that it doesn't cover the entire sheet. So you can see that that one, it's nice and dry now. I did these earlier this morning, and it's just random. It doesn't go right to the edges. We are going to trim this down, so a lot of this white space will go. I did 2 in case I mucked the first one up, and I'll be able to choose, but they're both roughly the same. I sort of started, went down diagonally, and then added some extra bits out to the side. So it's quite rough around the edges. So that's going to be our background piece. We'll work on that first, because then we can let that dry, because we are going to watercolour with that. So we will need, let's get those out of the road. We'll need something to watercolour with. Now I have a jar of water and a paintbrush here. I'll also be using my, if I can find it, my water painter. So I think that's the larger size, in the brush with the larger size. I do have somewhere I did put a heap of, oh here it is. I've got a new setup today. I'm sitting down, I'm at a totally different desk. We are having some big changes in our house. I'm just going to use two sheets of watercolour paper. Not watercolour paper. What is this stuff called? Paper towel. Just so that I don't totally saturate my grid paper. So which one will we use? I think we'll use this one. We're going to need some ink. I'm going to use Fresh Freesia. So I've used Fresh Freesia in the background here, and it's a really simple watercolouring technique, but you will need some ink to do that with. So I've got a block, and I'm just going to, we don't need too much, so I'm just going to use my ink pad and apply some ink to the block. You can use your ink refill if you want to, but for what we're going to do, that's probably more than sufficient ink. I've got a Stampin' Spritzer here, full of water, somewhere here. And I'm going to add some water, first of all, onto the block to make a bit of an inky mix on the block, and then I'm also going to put water all over the embossing paste so that when I add the ink, it doesn't stick, it actually spreads nicely. So a wet on wet watercolour technique. So I've added quite a bit of water, as you can see. It's quite wet. And now I'm just going to apply the ink, and you don't want to cover the whole thing. You sort of, that should be wet enough. I do have my water over here in the jar in case I don't have enough water, but that's plenty, I think. So, and then I'm just going to apply it roughly. So I want some of the ink to come past the embossing paste and some of it not. Does that make sense? So I will have some embossing paste left white and some not. Some not. There you go. I have my heat tool over here. So I can see I've got some white here. I don't know whether that'll stay on there, but there's a little bit of white up here, and it's just roughly applied. It's still wet, so you can sort of roll it around if you like. And I'm going to dry that with my heat tool. I'm going to put this somewhere over here, so I don't actually, what I should do is clean it off. Got a paper towel here. I'll do the right thing. Clean off my brush and clean off the block. So I've got my heat tool. I'm going to just shut off the microphone for a wee second so I don't blast you with the noise. So just sing to yourselves for a wee minute. Remember to turn the microphone back on. Okay, so the embossing paste does handle the heat quite well, but you will notice that I kept moving the heat tool the entire time. I'm just noticing that you can see the focus on the heat tool and not the actual card. So I'm just waiting for it to come back into focus. There we go. Yeah, so you can see that it's got some darker parts, some lighter parts, and the embossing paste stays a little bit lighter. And it's quite dry. The embossing paste hasn't disintegrated. It's nothing really has changed. But I wouldn't focus the heat on one area because I think the embossing paste might bubble if you do that. So I kept the heat tool moving nicely, and that's nice and dry. The next thing we're going to do is add some cherry cobbler splatter. So I will need a block, and I'm going to use a little bit of ink refill for this, just easier than you only need a drop. I do want it to be quite dark, and I do want it to be quite wet because I want to splatter it. So I'm going to move everything out of the road a bit here. You know what I'm like with splattering. We'll just add some water to that mess, and then I'm just going to tap my brush down. Now, being watercolour paper, this will run, and it will run, can you see that it's running where it's hit the embossing surface, the lines in the embossing? That will do, and I will just get that paper towel that I used before and clean that off. Flip this over and just take off the excess. And then you'll see that it's quite an interesting little pattern highlighting some of the areas of the embossing. Now if you wanted to, you could spritz that with water and that would spread that embossing a little bit. I think I'm just going to leave it. I don't even think... I might just hit that with a heat tool because we are going to add some embossing powder, and I don't want to cover all my red by the embossing powder sticking to any wet ink. So I will quickly just dry this. So let me put you on to mute again. Looks pretty good, I think. Now I'm going to add, the whole idea of this is an aged distressed metal look for our feature piece. So I'm going to add a little bit of distressed shine into the background. So to do that, I'm going to use silver embossing powder. So I've got a container of silver embossing powder here. And I'll need a Versamark ink pad, and I am going to apply the Versamark all over the top, even though we're not going to apply the powder all over the top. But it just gives the powder something to stick to, and then as we dry it with the heat tool to set it, it will dry the rest of that Versamark. And it's not going to stay wet. So to add my powder, instead of tipping it all over, because the powder will stick everywhere, I'm just going to take a pinch of powder and I'm just going to sprinkle it. Just little bits here and there. You don't need very much, she says, as she drops a whole heap on there. That should do it. I'll just pop the lid on this. No, we won't, because I'm going to tap off the excess. So we'll turn that over and just tap, but most of the powder should have stuck to the Versamark. See, any big blobs have come off. Pop that over there out of the road. I'm running out of space already. And again, I'm going to heat that with the heat tool. So I will again put you on mute. Okay, are we still live? I think we're still live. No one's commented for a little while, so I'm worried that I disappear off the face of the earth, which is quite possible. I'm going to put you on mute though. or watching. You'll have to let me know whether you're happy that I turn the sound off on the heat tool, or whether you would prefer it if I actually left the sound on and just yelled over the top of it. I'm going to try that now, because it might go a bit funny when it goes silent, and anyone coming in might think I've got it wrong. I can see that there are a couple of little bits here that haven't heated properly. So I'm just going to make sure they're heated. And you can see, hopefully you can see, that gives a very slight shimmer. Now it all looks a bit messy. This looks like a bit of a messy mess at the moment, but once we trim it down and add something to the front of it, it will look like this, and you're not going to see most of the mess anyway. What you'll see is the interesting background. So let's quickly trim this down, and then we can move on to the other messy bits. So I'm going to make this standard, what I call my standard layer, which is in metric is 10 by 14.3, and I'm sorry, but I don't have the imperial in front of me, but you'll know the standard first layer that goes on your folded card front. So this is going to be 10 by 14.3. Now the good thing about cutting this down is that you can remove the bits you don't like I don't like that comety thing, so we'll get rid of that one. I probably like this side better than I like this side, but I might take these off. So let's flip this around and take a little bit off this side. And then because I know that that's straight now, I'll flip this around and put this along the top. And I'm going to go to 14.3, so you can sort of gauge how much to take off. So that's got rid of those messy dots there. Now this one will be 10. Now is that going to be too much to take off there? Probably, so we'll just bring it over to here. Take that off, and then we can make this now 14.3. And this one, we'll bring it back down now to 10. A little bit more off that side. So now we have a 10 by 14.3 panel, and already doesn't that look so much better? And be polite and say yes, even if you don't think it does. All right, so these techniques are not for everybody. You know what I'm like. The messier the better. Let me straighten up my paper. All right, so that's our background, and that will go onto our folded white card front, like so, but we will add a little border around the edge before we do that. I think I did it on the other one and it looks quite nice, but I can't remember what colour I used. Fresh Freesia. So we'll grab our Fresh Freesia ink and a little sponge dauber. We haven't used sponge dauber for a while. And then I'm just going to very lightly apply the ink around the edge. Just felt it needed some sort of frame, but I didn't want to sponge it totally because I've already added quite a bit of ink with the watercolouring. So this just adds a very, which you probably can't even see doing it like this, but once we put it over the white card, you'll see that that just gives it a little bit of definition around the edge. Or you could matte it, layer it onto Fresh Freesia matting layer, I guess. There we go. Done. I'll be a little bit careful because that might still be a bit wet, but now you can see, hopefully, that that adds just a little bit of a definition around the edge. Right, so we'll pop that aside for a minute. We'll put that together in a second. Let's move on to the central piece. So the central piece is this round bit here. That comes out of the Hello Irresistible dies. That's what they're called. Just Irresistible Blooms dies. which is an online only product, I believe. And there is this big round, quite detailed die, which comes in this set. It does cut out, it cuts out all this fancy bit, but it doesn't cut out around the edge. So when you put it, if you cut something out with it, it's usually in a square or a rectangle or can be another circle, but it doesn't actually cut this circular bit around the edge. So, and I want it to be a circle, a cut out circle. So what I pulled out was my my deckled circle dies, and I have gone ahead and cut a circle out of Fluid 100 watercolor paper. I've gone ahead and die cut a circle, so we can get rid of the surrounding outside bit. So this was, which circle was it? Right in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th from the outside, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8th from the inside is the size that I'm using, which perfectly then fits this round circular die in the middle. Now, if you try and put that through, it will likely move. So I would grab either a Post-it note or some tape and go ahead and make sure that it is very central, because I want that outside frame to be equal if I can. So that will hold it down. You're going to throw this away anyway, so, and the washi tape will likely rip it, but you're going to throw it away anyway. So go ahead and die cut that, and you end up with something that looks like this. So I've already gone ahead and done it ahead of time. I have done 2 in case I muck one up. So, but we'll try not to muck it up. I'll grab some paper towel, pop this out of the road, and we'll go ahead and we're going to try and create an aged rusty look. Now normally I would do this with greens and blues and create like especially if you use the copper embossing powder with it, and you can get a rusty look, but that's not the colours we're using today. So I've attempted to make an aged rusty look, just need my water out of the road, an aged rusty look on that frame with the colours that we're using. So let me see if I can recreate that, because it was quite a few steps. I've got my Fresh Freesia ink is going to be my base, and I'm going to use my sponge dauber just to apply some colour to that round piece, just roughly, and I'm tapping, not pulling. That this is quite a delicate die, and it's very delicate when you go to take it out of the die too. You have to be very careful. Just go around and add a little bit of colour with the Fresh Freesia, and then I have just a plain sponge dauber and my Versamark ink pad, and I'm going to apply a little bit of clear embossing powder. So I've got that in the bucket. Yes, Sharon, cutting that die out, that particular deckled circle works really well with it, because considering we don't have any of the largest plain circles anymore, but there is a die in the, I can't remember the name of the die set. It's the one that makes the round, there's another die that fits, but it's got a scalloped edge that you can use also if you have it. I'll just look up what it is in my catalogue. And that fits as well, but it has a scalloped edge to it. The Stylish Shapes doesn't have a circle that's big enough. The other one does it. Sure, I can't find it now. Maybe it's not even current. Yes, the Give It a Whirl dies, that's these ones. There is a circle in there that is the same size as that deckled circle, and it cuts out the base for the that turning wheel thing, so you can use that one as well. It just gives it a small decal decal edge, not decal, a scalloped edge instead of the decal. So now I'm going to apply, I might just hit that with my heat tool. I won't mute myself, but I do want to make sure that that is dry. I do have a pair of tweezers here because I'm going to apply Versamark and I don't want the, I'm just going to do it off screen because I've got my powder out, but I don't want the embossing powder to stick to the whole thing. I only want it to stick to parts of it. So I've just gone ahead and, you know, just quickly dried that with my heat tool. There'll be a bit of heating here that you're going to have to put up with, sorry. All right, so now I'm going to take my Versamark and just apply it roughly. Just a few dabs here and there. And then I'll get my little tweezers and I'll pop it into the clear embossing powder. Give it a good tap. You probably can't see anything. In fact, I can't really see anything. Let's hope there's some powder on there. I'm sure there is. And now we're going to go ahead and heat that. So I'm looking, no one's really said they mind the noise of the heat tool, so we'll just run with it. So I don't know if you can see that. But wherever the Versamark sponge dauber hit, the powder is sitting there. It'll be all speckledy because this is watercolour paper, but that's what I want. And just make sure that it's all nicely heated and melted. That'll do. Just going to flip it up in the light here. Very hard for you to see, but I'll just, feels okay. I can't feel any powder. So there's just lots of little bits of, can you see those? Little bits where the powder has touched where the Versamark is, and so some bits have clear on and some don't. Now I'm going to take a sponge dauber again and a darker ink, which is the Gorgeous Grape. I'm going to apply that over the top. So the clear embossing will resist the ink. And the parts where there was no embossing powder will pick up the ink and make those parts darker. And I think my Gorgeous Grape ink pad may need a bit of re-inking. Oh, and you know what? I've got it. I've got my Gorgeous Grape. I'm just going to add a little bit of, I don't have anything to spread it with, but we'll run with it. It does seem a bit dry. I'll just use the top of my ink pad. Give it a little bit of a, that's a bit better. And so the Gorgeous Grape, the darker colour is going to stand out over our Fresh Freesia background better. But hopefully the bits that have embossing powder on them will resist that ink, but it will sink in. As you can see, it's done that here. It's sunk into the parts that don't have embossing powder on them. Oh, look at that. Again, be a little gentle, probably a little gentler than I am. I'm doing this in a hurry. And we have a very speckledy piece now that has some dark, and because the embossing powder is a bit speckled on the watercolour paper, it'll sink down in between. You can very lightly rub the ink off the top of the clear embossing powder, which will bring up the fresh freesia bits. Get rid of that. Does that make it easier to see? See how it's gone down in all the little speckles here? So that just gives you the two-tone. And then we want to add that rusty or aged metal look, and we'll do that with some silver embossing powder. So I'll bring that back in. Now I don't have, oh yes, we'll use this bit. And that sponge dauber and my Versamark ink pad. And again, I am actually going to heat that with the heat tool. Just put the lid back on this, because again, I put ink all over that and I don't want the silver embossing powder to stick to everything, otherwise we're defeating the purpose of having the colour. So let me just hit that with my heat tool. You don't really want to remelt the powder, you just want to dry the ink. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try and leave most of the outside coloured, and I'm going to add the Versamark to the dots. Now it's quite a big sponge dauber and the dot's quite small, so just, you know, be aware that it won't be perfect. But the silver is not clear, it's going to go all over everything, so everywhere that sponge dauber has been, the silver is going to stick to, so the idea is to not cover the entire thing, because otherwise we won't see any of our colour. Oh, I just closed my silver embossing powder up like a dill. Right, so let's plonk that down in here. If you've got your powders in little containers, then you can use the embossing tray and just tip the powder over the top. Just like the little containers better. Thank you, Barb. Oh, purple hearts from Monica. Thank you for the purple hearts. All right, so you can see that I've got silver powder in some places and not in others. That's sort of the look that I want. I've tapped most of the excess off back into the container. Now I'll need the heat tool and I'll go ahead and heat that. I've got some, I don't know what it's like at your end, but at my end I've got some buffering going on. So if you can see buffering, it's likely my end, not yours. I'm having some issues with the internet just recently. Maybe because we moved the box, not the box, the modem. We're having some big changes in my craft room and my classroom. So yeah, so there's been lots of furniture shifting going on. So you can see that that's now made some shiny bits, some silver shiny bits. So you can imagine how that would look in blues and greens with copper. It would look shiny and new. It wouldn't look old and rusty. So to make it look a bit old and rusty, go one step further. I have here my dark basic black Stampin' Blend. Now some of you are not going to like this. Maybe you could use a tissue. I'm just going to use my finger. Maybe we could try it with some paper towel, but I'm just going to use my finger. Now, Stampin' Blends are alcohol based, so they will dry. So if I was to colour this with my alcohol marker and then leave it, it would dry and it would dry black. I'm just going to zoom you in a fraction if I can, because I can. Remind me to zoom that back out in a minute. Oh, thank you, Mindy. Yeah, I never know when to stop. I just keep going. But I was trying to achieve a certain effect, and you just keep going until you achieve it. Sometimes you end up with a mess, sometimes it works. Anyway, I've taken my Stampin' Blend and I'm going to, see, this is what I want it to look like. Can you see that one? That one there? See how it's a bit rough and aged looking? That's what I want them to look like. So I'm just going to go into each of the circles, add my Stampin' Blend, and then very quickly rub it off with my finger. I'm going to get a very dirty finger, but what it's going to do is it's going to dull the embossing, and the Stampin' Blend is going to stay in the little pits, but I'm sort of wiping it off the top. Oh, and there goes my tummy. Even though I had a cup of coffee and a biscuit, it still likes to make itself known. So rub it off. You don't want it to be black, and if you left it sit there, then it would look black because it would dry. But just before it dries, I'm just taking it off. You can see, oops, where's my finger? You can see it's getting all over my finger. You could maybe use a tissue or a cloth. I just, you know, I'm just a messy girl. And this just takes away some of that very bright, shiny new silver shine. It makes it a bit dull and aged, distressed looking. So do that wherever you think it's a bit too shiny. Oops, sorry. Oh dear. Wow, you must have heard that. Don't tell me you didn't hear that one. My tummy, let's rumble with Cheryl. Right, and so there we've then got a more aged look to our little metallic frame. And I think we're going to stop there and move on to our flowers. So that's going to sit over the top of our fresh freesia and cherry cobbler embossing paste piece, and we'll do the flowers. So this bit isn't that difficult. I'm going to do some stamping and some colouring of die cuts. So we've got the stamps and the dies from the Magical Meadow, and I've already got them out, but I'm going to use this one and this one to stamp with, and I'm going to stamp onto powder everywhere. Going to stamp onto watercolour paper. So I do have some bits of watercolour paper here somewhere buried. It's getting buried. So these are just the bits left over from my when I cut it down to cut the circle. And I'm going to stamp with some Highland. That's gorgeous, great, because we haven't used Highland Heather yet. So let's bring in the Highland Heather to stamp this one. So we're going to use quite a few different techniques here. So this one is going to be stamped. So I have inked up my stamp with my Highland Heather. Then I'm going to add, because I'm going to go down onto watercolour paper and it's going to be blotchy, and this is a distinctive style stamp, so it's going to be even more blotchy. I need to zoom out, don't I? Can I zoom out? Yes, there we go. It's a bit better. Right, so I'm going to add some spritzing to my stamp. Now, it needs to be really light, so don't do this. It needs to be from a long way away, and I don't want to get water all over everything here, so I'm just going to back off a little bit, and I'll see if I can do it without getting water everywhere. I have my Stampin' Spritzer way above me, about maybe 40, 50 centimetres, half a metre. So that makes it about 1.5 foot, I guess, above it. I'm just going to spray and then basically pull the stamp through the spray. And that way you'll get, I don't know if you can see it, a very light mist on the stamp, which helps it to blend a little bit so you don't just get a whole heap of blotchy lines when you stamp it onto your watercolour paper, she says, hopefully. Oh, sorry. And so that's my Highland Heather, and you can see that the distinctive style stamp, which is that textured stamp, has sort of blended together a little bit. To accentuate this and make it look even more watercolour, I'm going to take my fine tipped, that's not my fine tipped one, this is my fine tipped water painter, make sure it's clean, which it's not, and I'm going to blend the colours together even more, which is going to give it a real watercolour look, like you've hand painted it. This is where this little fine water brush is great. And it doesn't even matter if you go outside the lines a bit, just don't squeeze the pen too much, because if the water goes everywhere then you're really in strife. So now that's just plain old Highland Heather. I'm going to add a little bit of texture to it with my Gorgeous Grape. So we'll just need a little bit of Gorgeous Grape ink, not too much. So I've just popped a little bit on a block. I'm going to pick that up and just, whoops, make sure it's wet or you'll end up with big blobs like I just did. Just going to come in and pick that up with my, oh, it looks quite pretty though. Pick that up a little bit, wick it up. So just add a little bit of toning or shading with the darker colour. This just gives it a much more a painterly effect. I don't know, like you've painted it yourself. It'll take away some of the detail in the leaf, but it looks much more watercoloured. What do you think? There is a die to cut that out, so we will cut that out in a minute. But while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll stamp this one, which is these little berries, which I think are meant to be blueberries, but today they're going to be red berries. So red berries with purple foliage. So this is a different way of colouring. I've got my Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Right marker and my Gorgeous Grape Stampin' Right marker. And I'm going to colour directly to the stamp because I want two distinct colours. So with the brush end, we'll do the leaves, I think. So just colour in your stamp. Now you can use the Stamparatus for this, or whatever stamp positioning tool you have, if you want to. So you could stamp that on your Stamparatus, clean it off, and then come back in with your Cherry Cobbler without moving the stamp and stamp that. But I'm going to do some more of that spritzing, so which you still could do in the Stamparatus, but I'm going to put both my colours on together. And then do that same spritzing thing. So move everything out of the road, grab your spritzer, and again from quite a height, and you want to move the stamp through the spray, not spray onto the stamp. So I'm spraying into the air about 1.5 foot, 1.5 I guess, away, and then moving the stamp through the spray rather than actually spraying the stamp. And that just gives it a really fine mist, and it's not going to run everywhere. You're still going to get a distinct image, she says, as she lifts it up, like so. And you can see this one is quite patchy. because this is a patchy stamp and we've applied Stampin' Write marker to it instead of ink colour. So this is where colouring in is going to really highlight or make this look a lot better. So I've got some water in the end of my brush and I'm just going to do the leaves. My gorgeous grape leaves. I'm not going to worry too much about those top, oh, I suppose I can. This water paint is so lovely and fine. And now I've cleaned it off and we'll do the red bits. Now this will push the ink towards the outside, and as it blends it will make a hard edge. Oh, sorry. Mr. Tummy's trying to tell me something. It's lunchtime. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Who remembers that? Miss Pat and Blackboard. It's an Aussie thing. Any US girls on here probably won't know what I'm talking about. It's hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. What a grumpy Blackboard he was. And there we've just now made those little berries. Hello, Sharon. Made those little berries look much better than they did when we first stamped them. And that pushes the colour towards the outside, gives it a real watercolour type look. So there are two stamped images. I've also gone ahead and die cut a couple of the dies. So I decided to use these two, which are my favourites. So there's one that is leaves with little berries on the end and a hair, and one that is a stick with little somethings on the end. So I'm using those two. Oh, I'll need another one of these. I forgot. I need another one. Let's do another one quickly. I need two of those. So we'll just, what did I use? Highland Heather. Again, move these out of the road. Give this a spray. Spray into the air. Move the stamp through it. And then stamp it down onto here so I can die cut it. Give it a quick little zhuzh with the water brush. I've still got some gorgeous grape here that I can use to give that a little bit of a blend. Be really quick with this one. Pick up some of this darker colour and apply that in there. Oh, excuse me. Wish I could ignore that. It's very embarrassing, you know. My tummy has no consideration for my feelings. There we go. So that's ready. So I'll just have to wait for those to, I'll hit them with the heat tool if they're not dry by the time I go to die cut them. But now we'll work on these. Oh yes I do. With these ones I'm going to colour directly to the die cut. So what colours will we use? We'll need a bit of, what's this one? Some Highland Heather. Need a bit more gorgeous grape, so we'll use this block that I just had, but I will take that water off it first. And we'll need some cherry cobbler. Cherry cobbler. I should have kept that cherry cobbler I had all over that block before, shouldn't I? I don't know that I've got I've got my cherry cobbler ink pad out, so I'm going to use my marker and just scribble on there. So, you know, lots of different ways. Could you see that? Or am I still? So I just scribbled marker onto my block. These two are ink pads, but you could use your marker there as well because we hardly need any colour. Let's start with some of the whatever we're going to make Highland Heather. So I'm doing the stems, and you know, I'm not worrying too much here about missing because we're going to blend it all in together. So that's sort of the stem areas. Bro. Yes, I know. It's so annoying, my tummy. So I'm going to do the stems and the berries in the Gorgeous Grape on this one. And then I'll do the leaves in the lighter Highland Heather, I think. So let's get those berries nice and dark. I want some contrast in my foliage. I want some dark, some light, because otherwise it'll all just blend in together. Oh dear. Dear oh dear. Obviously I don't eat enough. You wouldn't think so, I'm judging by the scales, but anyway. So that's the darker Gorgeous Grape bits done. This one I'm going to clean my brush off. And I'm going to do some, actually we'll do the lighter leaves over here first. These are going to be Highland Heather, and I want them to sort of blend into the stem. So, you know, I'm throwing the water around, even though these are quite delicate little dyes. They should be fine because they're the watercolour paper. I wouldn't do this with basic white. They just end up a soggy mess. But the watercolour paper is wonderfully forgiving. Let's try and blend it in where it... by blend it in, I mean just, you know, slop your paintbrush around a little bit. Okay, that's got to dry. So we'll just pop it over there. But doesn't that look cute? It's so pretty. Right, now this one I'm going to do these little funny looking things on the ends here are going to be cherry cobbler. Now cherry cobbler in watercolour makes a totally different look to cherry cobbler when it's like painted straight onto a card where we inked it first. It's quite a bit lighter when you tone it down with some water. I sort of want them to be a bit darker on the ends, but so we'll just add the extra colour to the ends, and then I'll come back in with my Highland Heather and just blend those together where the stem and the funny looking thing meet. I'm sure someone will tell me what those are. Am I making you all hungry with my belly rumbling like that? Lunchtime soon. All right, so we've got that. Just going to sort of run out of dark, but I'm just going to try and make the ends a little bit darker. Right, and that will be those ones. So now I'll have to die cut these. I'm moving all this out of the road. So I'm trying to go fast here because we're over time already. So I'm going to hit everything here with the heat tool just because I don't want to glue anything down that's wet. Should get out my little tweezers, but let's just dry that off. Remember not to put I've got my camera's on the opposite side to what it normally is on, so I'm struggling with arm placement. A true artist, yes. Slop the paint on here, slop the paint on there. I'm really not a true artist. I just don't care if it's a little bit wonky or... Well, that's not true. I do care if something's wonky, but I don't... With watercolouring, it's meant to look funny. Meant to look a bit, you know, not quite right. Now the dies, there are dies for these. All I've got to do is find them. That would be handy, wouldn't it? Don't tell me I'm going to have to fussy cut them. Whoops. One. Maybe not. Oh yes, there's one. Oh, I found them. One was there, the other one was over on the table. Guess what came in the mail just before I went live? My pre-order. I'm so excited. Those of you who are on the team, tomorrow afternoon we might open it and have a look. All right, so let's die cut these. I'll have to do that now because I didn't pre-do any of these. So we'll just pop this on here. Run that one through. Got my machine just off to the side here. Again, everything's different. Here's one. I'll do these both together. These little red ones look just amazing. They look like I've painted them myself. Aren't I clever? Oh, through it goes. Hard to emboss when you're sitting down. Not a sitting down girl. Got a new desk coming though, it's a stand-up desk, so I'll go back to not sitting down shortly. I've got a freebie coming, which is great. All right, pop those over here. So now we've got all our flowers and leaves. The only other thing we're going to need is our sentiment. So I'm going to silver emboss my sentiment, so let's get that done. Got a piece of plain white card. I've got some. Now I nearly did this on watercolor paper because the white against the creaminess of the watercolor paper was annoying me, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to go ahead and do it in white. Now I haven't got my. I'm going to have to just go away again and get my embossing buddy. Hold on. I'll be better organised for next week when I'm set up properly in the new posi. Right, so we'll swish that over, especially with silver. I've got my stamp here. I need my Versamark. Ink this up and we'll just do it. Now this doesn't have dies. It's just a stamp set. Am I still on screen? Yes. So, we're going to have to fussy cut. Doesn't take long though. Okay, duck this in here. Tap off the excess. A bit of a flick. Ah, look at that. Lovely. And a little bit of heating. Bear with me. Let's see if I can do this without putting my heat tool in the road. Oh. I haven't embossed with silver for so long. It's so pretty. Look at that. So gorgeous. When you get the shine, let me. Oh, there you go. Ta-da! Right. Now a bit of fussy cutting. So let's hope I don't muck this up now. We got this far. So round and round we go. So I learnt something new this morning. I learnt how to schedule a YouTube live through Streamlabs. I learnt, thankfully I had that extra hour where I nearly thought we were going live an hour earlier. luckily I had that extra hour because I did some research and found that when you schedule a live, it's a different stream key than your normal stream key. If you don't schedule things, you won't know what that means, but thankfully I looked, so I was able to reset the stream key, so we have a special live streaming key now. Otherwise, I would never have been able to work out why we weren't live in the right place. Would have been live, just not where I thought, not on the link that I gave you. Right. That's sort of good. Sort of good. So now we have all our bits, we can go ahead and put our card together. So we'll do some gluing. Now this is quite thick, so we'll need quite a bit of glue, but not so much that it comes out everywhere, which that probably is going to. So let's try and push that in. This one goes onto the front of the card. I think it was up that way, wasn't it? I think it was the other way. This way. Probably doesn't make any difference. Right, so now this watercolour piece with the embossing paste on it is quite thick. So you want to make sure that it's well glued down. Did you notice that I didn't put nails on today? Finally my nails are, even though they look terrible, they're a lot better looking than they were before. So I'm going to attempt to get them nice and healthy. So just make sure it's all stuck. That little sticky noise you heard was the Versamark. Just does make it a little bit sticky, but that will dry. Most of it is dried with a heat tool, but there are bits where I didn't. So if you're doing this yourself, dry it all with the heat tool, not just where the powder is, because then that will dry the Versamark as well. It just stays a little sticky. This one, I don't have any sticky back on because it would have come off when we heated it, so we're going to have to apply the glue. Now this is tricky because we're going over embossing powder paste with texture. You need to have enough glue for it to stick, but not enough glue so that it will smoosh out everywhere. The good thing is that most of this glue will go down in the grooves, so it shouldn't actually smoosh out. It should go down in the grooves of the embossing paste. Well, that's what I'm hoping anyway. So I don't know if you can see that, but I've sort of put dots in the little circles and around the edge because I do want the edge to stick. And then we'll just plonk this down in the middle. No worries, Monica. Thank you for coming along. Yes, everyone's going exciting about the pre-order. It is exciting. I can't wait to open it and have a look. Didn't take long to get here at all. Right, so that's stuck. I've just got to give it a little minute, but I'm going to go ahead and stick my flowers down and hope that all that sticks. But no, glue hasn't come out. It's all gone down into the grooves of the embossing paste, and the watercolour paper also helps to suck it all up. So we're going to glue all of our leaves down flat, and I'll pop the sentiment up with dimensionals. So it's just a few little bits to pop out of these. And we'll pop, and again, you're going to need a little bit of more glue than you would normally use because we're going down onto the embossing paste. So we're going to be a little bit over to the left hand side. Glue this one down. I think I should have glued this one down first. Right. Oops, with a lot of glue. Just take some of that and try and so I've got a reasonable amount of glue on there. I'll just, oh yeah, I can. We'll just pop this one down first. Just sit still. You can see that hasn't stuck because it needs to stick to the embossing paste. So you will need to give this a few minutes to stick. We'll pop this one down. Try and make them at different heights without hiding all of the other leaves. Sticky, 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 stick, stick, stick. And then with this one, so this one, I'm just going to put glue in all these little things. I don't know what they are. They're some sort of like a seed pod or something. They're not a flower, they're the remnants of. And then I'll just try and get some glue in the little stem because we don't want it to come off. And so this one can, oh, and it's going to be too long. Let's take off some of the end. Right. This looks totally different to the other one that I did. Totally different placement. And the last one to go on, which will sort of hold everything down because it's quite a lot thicker, is this little guy here. The little red blueberries. Red berries. Sort of not cherries, because cherries don't grow like that. All right, and then while that's merrily sticking there, we've got the So Thankful for You, which I'm going to pop up with dimensionals, which I did bring over here before I started. Here they are. So let's see if the big one will fit here, but I think we'll need small ones for everywhere else. So let's where's this going to go? Let's see where I need my dimensionals. It can go about here. So we won't need dimensionals right to the edge. Put a little one here. And I will put some glue just on that little end. And we'll slide this in and hope that that's straight because I'm working at an angle. It's not really straight, but it'll do. That'll do, pig. There it goes. Right. Everything seems to be quite stuck. This is a totally different look to the other one. It's my watercolouring went a bit over the top. This one's got a lot more white in it. This one's got a lot more pink. So yeah, maybe I went a little bit over the top with my watercolouring up here, but this is quite nice because it's my foliage is a little bit darker, and a couple of leaves. And yes. That's my card for today. I hope you have enjoyed it. Hello, Catherine. Oh dear, fighting with the new platform. Dear, oh dear. I hope you fix it. So yes, that's my sort of aged, distressed metal look frame with my silver embossing, which I then took away the bright silver shiny. And I think I like this one with the white more. So I went a little bit too much overboard here, but you know, it's still a pretty card. So that's my entry, or my card for the Colour Inspiration Challenge number 155. So it uses Fresh Freesia, Highland Heather, Gorgeous Grape and Cherry Cobbler. An interesting mix of colours, especially with no green. So if you get a chance to put I will get such a thrill if any of you go ahead and put a card of some sort. It doesn't have to be this one, obviously, but it can be any card that you like made with those colours. You can use metallics, any metallics. You can use neutrals such as white, Fairy Vanilla, Crumb Cake or black, which could really change the look of something up. So, and then just go in, and if you're not a member already, ask to join the group. I'll put the link up. You answer the 3 questions and then just pop your card up in the feed, and it's always lovely to see what everybody does. Thank you very much. I will see you all hopefully again next week. Don't forget, I'll put the link to the live up in the group, to the Zoom live on the 26th. I would love to see you come along to that. Otherwise, I will see you next week. I'm going to try and keep it to Wednesdays around about this time at the moment and get some sort of regularity back. So I should say goodbye properly. So let me move over to here. Thank you very much, ladies. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.